Okay, hello. This is the Keeping Campers Safe training. And so, the overview, the purpose of this training is to give all staff a foundation of skills and understanding in risk management, and basic camper safety. So, the overall objective um, is that. And unfortunately, we're just going to go through um, the document to go over how to keep campers safe at camp. And so for the facilitators know, it's critical. This is critical for keeping campers safe, and we're going to give you some techniques and tricks to do during camp to make sure that we're just making it an environment where we are making it fun, but also making sure that these kids do remain safe throughout the whole time. And so um, the procedures and policies set out in this workshop are specific and mandatory in nature. And if there are any questions or concerns after you do watch the video, definitely ask. And we'll go over further things in detail with our camp advisor at the pre-camp training as well. And so um, I'm just going to go over here actually so you don't read what's coming next. But when you hear the things like you wake up in the middle of the night in the cabin and you realize that the building next to you is on fire, what would you do? Or you're at the waterfront and as you scan the water, you realize that you can see one of your campers may be drowning. What do you do? Or you walk into your cabin and you realize one of your campers is changing alone in the cabin. What was the first thing that you would do? Um, so really think about those, but ultimately, hopefully, it boils down to that in those types of situations, you would remain calm as the first thing to do in any of those experiences. So, in almost every situation, especially emergencies, we do think of actions first. Even though what really guides our actions is the emotion and the thought process happening prior to the actions. So, staying calm is really, really essential to keeping our campers safe because it makes us more rational in the moment and it can help us think through things that would be part of protocol and things that we may forget if we do just act immediately without remaining calm. And so, when you think of staying calm, how do you stay calm in emergencies? And what do calm people do? And how do calm people sound? So, um, for people staying calm in emergency situations, it may look different, but um, even just trying to relieve stress, say, not even in an emergency situation, say you're just taking a test, a lot of people do breathing techniques and taking a deep breath in, taking a deep breath out, maybe counting, doing things like that to remember, let me just take a second before I just immediately act. And again, what do calm people do? They breathe, they do breathing techniques, they take a second to act. And I mean, you could probably ask other past counselors what they've done, and they could say similar things to that extent. Or they could even just take a moment to really observe what is happening and make sure that they are seeing the situation as clearly as they think they are initially. And so, how do calm people sound? They definitely have a more steady tone to their voice. Um, they're not necessarily running around, but again, they keep that steady, stoic stature. And it's really crucial that if there is an emergency situation, that you do remain calm so that you can keep your campers calm and help them feel comfortable in the situation, though other things may be happening. And so, for the first section, we're going to talk about keeping track of campers. Whoa, I wonder if you heard that. Okay, so at any given time at camp, you are directly responsible for your campers in your immediate area and indirectly responsible for all of the campers at camp. Um, so this does this does mean you're responsible, say, for your green unit if you're a green unit counselor, but also you're responsible for the blue unit or the red unit as well if you see them around you in that area. Or just, again, you're just responsible for all campers at camp. So if you see something that is endangering a camper in any way, it is ultimately your responsibility to help alleviate that situation. Um, and so, how do you keep track of campers in your immediate area? We sort of did this at overnight training, and we went through a couple techniques. But one thing that is really, really essential is doing face counts. And so, you could, people say head counts, but face counts are more beneficial in the fact that you can really look them in the face and make sure that it is your camper. Because say you have a bunch of blonde children in your unit and there's a bunch of blonde children in the green unit, you may be accounting for some of the green unit kids rather than your own because you're just counting heads rather than counting them as individuals. And so, whenever we're at activities or we're at like all camp things, I really do like face counts. It's really, really helpful and I constantly do it. It's easy to just take a step back for like a second and just count them like every couple minutes just to make sure that they're all within your proximity and that all of your campers are accounted for. And then you could do fun things like spell offs or um, count offs, whatever you want to call it. It basically accomplishes the same thing, and so every kid is assigned a certain letter. You could think of a fun word like banana or orange, or I don't know why those words came to my head, but you could just think of a fun word and spell it out correctly. So if one person's missing, then again, they didn't say their letter, and you know that that specific person is missing. Um, it is a little bit harder for bigger groups because you have to think of specific words that like fit, but definitely it can definitely work and this works well for the little kids and I assume that works well for the big kids, but I really work with the young kids, so Um, you could also do Stand By Me. So this is when it helps kids to teach. It helps kids to like look out for each other. And so if they see that a bunch of, say, the blue girls are standing by their counselor, they're like, oh, hey, all the blue girls are over there. So they'll run over to the counselor as well. And so you could even do weird things like, okay, we're going to all make a body sculpture when I call out this word or whatever. So you can call out the word and they can all be a different part of the structure or they can all be a different part of whatever figure you're forming. So the only rules are that they have to be able to hold the pose, everyone's supporting their own weight, etc. Can't use props. Um, you don't even have to say stand by me. It could be like a different word, like blue unit. Um, my first year at camp, we would say, yellow ladies, now let's get in formation. And all the little yellow girls would, they didn't really have like a pose, but they would all get in line. Um, I think it was yellow. It was yellow. But definitely funny. So you can do funny things. It could be like relevant to our times now. They can do a dab. I don't know, whatever you want, as long as you're accounting for all your campers, make it fun. Um, and then perfect. So those are great ways to keep count of your campers. So at camp, there may be times when we're around like water, like a lake or something like that. And so if you're not a lifeguard, what is your job at the waterfront or pool? And so again, you should be constantly scanning your children, doing face counts, um, making sure that they're all accounted for and that you're not just hanging out, not really paying attention. Because again, especially around the waterfront, like it is very, very vital to pay attention to what your kids are doing because this you don't really know if anything is happening to your child because if a child is underwater, then they're not necessarily able to cry out for help. So this is what scanning is. So waterfront or pool scanning is literally the act of watching the campers in the water. It's difficult for lifeguards to see everything that goes on in the water, so the more adults that are scanning, the better. Scanning should be based on a grid format, and so if you break down the swimming area into like 2 foot by 2 foot sections, you can like start on the left or right, and then literally just scan back and forth and just keep accounting the water for whichever campers are in there. Even if they're not your own, just make sure you're watching everyone. Um, Again, it's probably unlikely that we will be doing water things, but just in the slim chance that we do, this is mostly for the older counselors, for the counselors that are with older units, because not necessarily like sometimes the little kids don't get to do the water things. So it really just depends. Um, but this is just so that you feel prepared in that moment. So awesome, awesome. So now we're going to move on to risk assessment. And let's say we are in our meeting room that we use throughout the year. So PSY 102. I almost said PSY 117, but I was like, I don't even know what room that is. So we're in PSY 102. And so as you're scanning the room, what types of things could be a risk to our campers' safety? Um, so when you think about it, the tables themselves could be a risk to the camper safety because they could get on them like we do during song circle. The chairs themselves could be a risk to their safety because they swivel, and then again, they can stand on them. The wires, um, any types of chairs that swivel, really. Anything that they could really just potentially hurt themselves are a risk to their safety. So definitely, even some of the smallest things that are supposed to just be utilized for like sitting or for like basic things could be turned into risks for our campers, and we just have to account for those in all the spaces that we go to at camp. Even just in the dining hall, the chairs could be stacked and they could climb up on them. They could throw cups, or they could mess around with the tables. There's just a lot of things. I'm just trying to imagine the dining hall, but there's just a lot of things that could potentially go wrong, and knowing that there may be an instance where it could potentially go bad is something that to just keep in the back of your mind. Um, and knowing that those things could happen, just try to think ahead of how you can mitigate the chances of those bad things happening. So, for instance, in the dining hall, when we do stack the chairs up, before the kids get in there, we can take them all down so that they're just individually placed and that everyone has their own seat rather than them trying to sit on a stack of chairs. Or if we were in our room, PSY 102, for us doing song circle, we wouldn't necessarily lead it by standing on the tables and leading by a bad example. So, knowing that these bad things can happen in these spaces, again, anticipating it, but also setting the example of what should be done in those spaces is crucial to keeping our campers safe so that they will follow your example and not do these crazy things that we're imagining in our brains. Um, cool, cool, cool. So for transitions, so according to the American Camp Association, most injuries that happen at camp during unstructured times, including transitions. So transitions, again, are when we're going from one activity to the next. So this could be us transitioning from arts and crafts to lunchtime. So that time that is unstructured in between those two activities are times when the kids can utilize their energy in a negative manner. And so we really want to refocus that into positive light and having games, small little activities, things to keep them focused and um, using that energy for a positive thing are really great ways to make sure that our campers are safe during those times. So if you think of more times, when will there be unstructured times at camp? Even like feed on bedtime or showers or like talent show practice, sometimes that can be a little bit unstructured. So just thinking of like all the things that could potentially go wrong and keeping them even a little bit more structured, even just to prevent anything from happening. How to keep track of everyone, specifically during transitions, what are the best games and activities, and what are the best ways to start and end transitions. So definitely for the young kids for transitions, I know we do with the hills, it may be a little bit hard, but we could do like red light, green light. They do like those. You saw overnight training, the force field. Um, Sometimes we like singing songs as we walk to meals or whatever the next activity is. Or we'll do some kids really like, not even if you're like walking to the next activity, but you just have to stay at that same place. So say we're in like the mess hall and we have to stay in the mess hall for a couple more minutes, you could do bunny bunny. We did some transitional games at overnight camp where it's like the counting one, so it's like I can't think of the actual name. It's not boom chicka boom, it's but oh um the one it has booty booty or just it's called something. This is gonna drive me nuts. But anyways, the one that we played at overnight. There's a bunch of other games too as well. I always love the sticks games. That's really entertaining for the kids. A lot of the girls do like the hand games with the hands where you like bang on tables or where you like Miss Susie had an airplane. That's not how it goes, but exactly. You get what I mean. Um, and definitely for transitional times, make sure you do give them a heads up of when is going to happen so then your transitional times there's not a bunch of squirrely energy, but they like had already planned somewhat for it within their brains mentally. So give them like a 15-minute warning when it's about to happen, give them another 10-minute warning, give them a 5-minute warning, and again, make sure that there is closure for the activities so then these kids don't feel like they want to stay and like have like negative leftover energy because they're like, hey, I didn't finish that, like I want to go back, blah blah blah. um, so definitely give them some closure for that as well. But that is actually the end of our camper safety. um, if you have any suggestions, I'll put at the end of this quiz for like fun games that past counselors have made for transitional periods that they like playing with their kids, and we can just like make a list of it and give them to all of you before camp for like if you want ideas and you don't know anything. Really, as long as you're creative and you make it sound interesting to them and you're excited about it, they'll usually be like, oh, that sounds like a great game, even though you're just like, I have no idea what these rules are. And if you just sort of make it up on the fly, but you're just like very confident about it and it's very structured in the way that you present it to them, like it totally works out. Like, oh, this side of the road is lava right now. You can't go over there. Um, so we have to stay over here, but we also have to tiptoe because we're going by Bigfoot's house or something like that. Um, it makes them focus on something else rather than just like running off into the woods because it's like you have to stay in this designated area that I can see you, but we also have to be very quiet and move very slowly so that we don't wake up Bigfoot. So I can still count all of my campers' faces, but we're also still walking or doing whatever we need to be doing to get to the mess hall. So do fun things like that. I have faith in all of your abilities to think of things like that. And again, we will be like sharing um, like some transitional games that you can do. And perfect, cool. Don't forget to take the quiz.